Thank you everybody for being here tonight. We couldn't have an event like this without all of you. Not only a room full of transgender individuals, but also our allies and support system. So please give it up for everybody. So the first thing we're going to do is a presentation of a proclamation from the city of Fresno. We have someone by the name of Itzy presenting the proclamation representing the city of Fresno. We do have somebody reading the proclamation by the name of Ed Chenevere. Please give it up for Edward. Come on up, guys. And this proclamation is a special thanks from Esmeralda Soria, council member for District Land South Quintero, County Supervisor for District 3. So thank you very much.
Whereas the city of Fresno recognizes that its entire diverse population should have equal rights and opposes any oppression and discrimination which diminishes the equality of life for any city of Fresno resident or visitor. This includes those in its transgender, gender diverse, intersex, androgynous, and gender non-conforming community. It is the duty of all of Fresno to advocate for those who experience hardship as a result of discrimination and inequity. It is only through a community's unity that we can overcome injustice towards all groups of people. It is important that the diversity among all constituents is recognized, respected, and celebrated. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Fresno Mayor and City Council does hereby proclaim the day of November 22nd, 2019 to be Transgender Day of Remembrance in the City of Fresno.
Thank you. Can we get a quick picture?
Yeah.
Thank you. I did forget to introduce myself, I'm sorry. My name is Zane Anthony. I'm not the current reigning Mr. Trans Fresno, but I am a title holder of Mr. Trans Fresno 2018. I did get invested as a for life title, so that means I get to represent my title every day for the rest of my life. So thank you all for that support as well. Our next entertainer, he will be reading a poem tonight. Recognizing somebody. So I'll go ahead and hand him over the mic. Did you want this mic here or did you want to stand here? So I can move it over, right? Okay. Let's give it up for Max Deco, everybody.
Okay, sorry for the delay. This poem is called To Be Transgender. To be transgender requires so very little, and it requires so much. Being transgender requires being true to yourself, your true self. Being transgender is to accept that you are human like everyone else, and that you are perfect as yourself. No matter what others think or say, you are perfect. No matter what gender you identify as, no matter who you love, no matter what clothes you wear, being transgender requires so very little, but the rewards are immense. So why is this so hard for non-transgender people, cisgender society to understand? Why is it that we are misgendered? Why are we bullied? Why are we attacked? And why are we killed? Being transgender requires so very little, and it requires so very much. It requires being happy and being content and being fulfilled in life. We are who we are. Why does the world hate us? Being transgender requires so little, and yet it requires so much. Being transgender requires being our true selves, no matter what. Even if the whole world is against us. Even if we lose family, friends, jobs, homes, we must be who we were born to be. Yes, being trans requires so little, and so very much. Every year we lose a portion of our community to murder and suicide, and we cry out. Why have you been taken from us? We cry out. A portion of our own souls has been lost. We cry out. For the loss of you is our loss. And we remember you. We will never forget. We remember. By Robin Angelique Harvey.
That was Max Deco. Thank you, Max. That was beautiful. So true. A lot of us don't think of that. It's like so simple, but so complicated. Thank you. All right. So next we do have somebody by the name of Faith Soto. Faith, are you ready? Here we go. Faith used to be a drag king. Can I tell them the story real quick?
Yeah.
So at Fresno Drag Festival, we had a contest, drag makeover, and she was made into a man, if you can imagine it. So I went ahead and put some hairspray right here, some fake hair, looked like 5 o'clock shadow. I actually had like almost a full beard going on, huh? That was pretty cool. So anyways, Faith Soto, good job. Next, we do have a reading. It will be by Angel, and it is Sophie's Peace. So let's give it up for Angel, please.
Okay, hello. So Sophie Gilbert is a teacher and a writer, and she's a part of the trans community, and she wasn't able to make it, so I'm going to be reading an excerpt of her memoir in progress. And it's titled Post-Op, June to August 2018. On June 27, 2018, I checked into California Pacific Medical Center in San Francisco and underwent gender confirmation surgery. My daughter Marie drove me there. We crossed the Golden Gate Bridge and exited the freeway. Up and down steep hills, we turned various side streets and landed on Castro Street. We traveled through the heart of the Castro, past the Castro Theater, and lots of rainbow flags. We crossed rainbow crosswalks, just a few more blocks on Castro, and we were at the hospital. We parked and I checked in. In the days leading up to my surgery date, I bought numerous items recommended by post-op care. A case of baby wipes, a case of Depends disposable underwear, feminine hygiene pads, douche, tubes of KY jelly, gauze pads, and a bottle of hydrogen peroxide. 2 days before surgery, I took laxatives and performed an enema on myself to clean out my bowel. After check-in, my daughter and I were sent to a room where I changed into a hospital gown and got into bed. After a short wait, I was wheeled to a pre-op waiting area where several patients were already parked and waiting. Marie sat in a chair opposite me. Curtains divided each patient in rows. I could hear a young woman tell an anesthesiologist about her fear of needles. The anesthesiologist spoke calmly to her, explaining that it was nothing to worry about. He made jokes as he inserted her IV needle. Various doctors entered and left the room, checking in with their patients. I was wheeled into the operating room, and I climbed onto the narrow table. My arms were placed on armrests, and I saw various medical staff in gowns, gloves, and masks. The next thing I knew, it was 4 hours later, and I felt horribly uncomfortable, like something was poking me in the rear end. I told a nurse, and she helped me shift position, but still I felt it. It turned out to be a wad of packing inside my new vagina. I learned that I would just have to take my mind off the discomfort I felt. I felt better once I was in a private room and in a real bed laying flat. I was on Percocet for pain and antibiotics, along with a bag of IV fluid. A Foley bag to collect urine hung on the side of my bed. I would stay there for 3 days. I slept for a long time that first night. My wife Louisa did not come to visit me until I was released from the hospital. Marie set the passenger seat to recline all the way back, so that I was basically laying down on the ride to my apartment. I hadn't had the foresight to buy a donut cushion to sit on. The packing hurt so much if I sat down. When we arrived home, Louisa was already there waiting for us. She helped me into bed and situated. Marie adapted an old Build-A-Bear box I had into a device that we could hang the Foley bag on. She put a 2-liter bottle of water inside so that the box would stay upright when she hooked the Foley bag onto the handle on the top of the box. Whenever I got up, I grabbed the handle of the box and took it with me. Louisa told me that she had been crying almost non-stop on the day of my surgery and that it was hard for her to come and see me. She arrived in time to help Marie get me situated in my apartment. I felt better being on my own bed, laying on my back with my feet propped up. I would sleep soundly that night, the best sleep I had that whole week. In the next few days, Louisa and I both cried and talked about our situation. I had my third and final surgery of my transition, and each surgery had hammered home the reality of my womanhood to Louisa. After my first surgery the previous October, she confessed that she saw me more as a best friend than a spouse. We gradually came to terms with the death of our marriage over the next months. She was mourning the loss of her husband, and I was mourning the rejection of my wife. Through it all, though, I was not angry. I felt sadness, but I recognized that I wanted a healthy relationship, not something based on denial. She had married who she thought was a man, and I could never fulfill that contract. During my recovery, I reflected on everything I had been through, coming out at work, losing my teaching job in Riverdale, the hard fight to land a new job in San Jose, and the therapy to cope with it all. I had so much anger back then, but I finally found peace. My relationship with my colleague, Peggy, had become strained, but it was managed to reconcile. I realized that she meant well, and we saw each other again at a California Teachers Association event on LGBT issues. Held in San Jose, several teachers from Riverdale were there, and I had the opportunity to reconnect and share my success at my new school. Old wounds started to heal. As I continued having follow-up visits with my surgeon, I learned about a couple of complications during the healing process. I had some wound breakdown just below the vagina, an opening that I needed to keep clean. Then in several areas in and around the vagina, some tissue granulation formed, in which skin turns red and gets sore. I had to have those areas treated with silver nitrate, which would burn the tissue and cauterize it. I would begin work on August 13th, marking the start of the new year. I had soreness in and around the surgical site, and my energy was low from spending the past 6 weeks convalescing at home. I didn't feel ready to be back at work, but I went. I had completed social transition when I came out at work. After my gender confirmation surgery, I was finally finished with medical transition. I had lost one teaching job and found a new one. My marriage had dissolved, but I had a new girlfriend. I suffered loss, but life goes on. I was finally happy, and I have the rest of my life to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I like to walk and talk. Walk it like I talk. So every year we do have a pageant, a title I'll say the trans title pageant every year through the Imperial Dove Court. This next entertainer is part of this year's title, which we added a youth title. So normally it would be Mr., Miss, or Trans X for the title. So now we have a junior Mr., Miss, and junior Trans X. So this next entertainer earned the title of Junior Trans X, and they go by the name of Cade Acuna. So please give it up for Cade.
Silence of guns, we're cutting like knives in a fist fight. And I found you with a bottle of wine, head in the goods, and I like the 4th of July. You swore unto me and now we are not shining stars. This I know, I never said we are. Though I've never been through hell like that, I've closed enough windows to know you can never look back. If you're lost in I can cheat it all to make up for the times I've been cheated on. And it's nice to know when I was left for dead, I was standing right out on the streets. I'm not the ghost you are, the man you lost it alone. Oh, you're sinking like a stone. Carry on. May you pass with the sound of your feet upon the ground and carry on.
We do have a speaker next, reading a piece for somebody who was not able to be here tonight. But this next person reading for them is very, very important. And we'd like to thank you tonight as well. She is part of the Women's Studies program here at Fresno State. That's Dr. Catherine Forbear in the corner. Come on up, come on up. Let's invite her up. Thank you. She'll be reading the piece for us tonight. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So unfortunately Shauna is not here, and unfortunately I'm not going to read something that she submitted. She couldn't be able to submit something, so I offered to sort of come and speak. And one thing that's really fulfilling about being a professor here at Fresno State and being in a program like Women's Studies is this sort of dedication to those who are very much marginalized in our community. Last year, I got to teach feminist activism, which is a fantastic experience, and my students worked together with Trans Emotion to look at the housing and homeless issue for the trans community. And a lot of my students who worked on that report are here, and a lot of people who made that report possible are here, right there in the front, but as well as other people here. Way to embarrass you, I know. So I think one of the things before I sort of go into this, I do also want to recognize a couple of things. You know, Transgender Day of Remembrance here would not have happened without the dedication of students who wanted this event here. And I actually want to give an embarrassing shout out to the person who's sitting behind Alex, Jude, Jude, stand up. Jude, who started this 3 years ago here at Fresno State. It makes me very happy to see you here. So, as I was saying, one of the great things is that my students worked on this housing report, and one of the things, we know the statistics are out there, right? That 1 in 5 people who identify as transgender, gender nonconforming, experiences homelessness, houselessness at least one point of their life. 1 in 5 transgender or gender nonconforming people have been evicted from their homes. And when my students did the report and sort of looked at and interviewed people within the community, we found gross disparities, not only in regards to people being denied housing, but also experiencing discrimination in shelters, as well as trying to access housing services, and also the sort of police brutality that they find on the streets and so forth. And what's important about this report is, one, it gives voice to what has already been talked about within the community. If you talk to anybody who's working with the LGBT community, if you talk to people within TransMotion, what are the two things that we talk about? One, a lack of access to healthcare, where many of in our community have to travel 3 hours away to get trans healthcare, and then housing, where we're having to deal with housing crises left and right on our TransMotion hotline and so forth. And since this is the day of Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I know that we are going to be reading the lives that have been lost to murder and suicide, I take it a challenge upon all of us, especially cisgender allies hopefully in this room, that I don't want to do a memorial anymore. And the only way that we can stop this is to start dealing with the problems before that. You know, whenever I'm sick and tired of reading on the news or seeing it on my Instagram or feed of another woman murdered, usually a black trans woman murdered, and then everybody is a little bit woke now, so they then give the number. They say, well, black transgender women are the ones facing some of the highest rates of murder and violence, which is true. But what next? Like, you got the number. That's good because, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people weren't even talking about that number. Now I'm asking all of us, I'm asking myself this challenge as well, to go beyond that number. And to really start talking about the institutions that deny transgender people housing, to talk about the policing system that is still very discriminatory here in Fresno, to talk about the fact that we have one doctor who's servicing most of the Central Valley, and if you try to book an appointment with her, it's going to be like a 2-year wait. To talk about the fact that transgender people have to decide on medication or food. To talk about how many of them who are denied jobs. So it's not even that they don't want to work. Obviously, they want to work and they want to live a decent, meaningful, full life, basic human rights. So what I ask all of us is that while we are here in a moment of memory, of pain, of grief, and hopefully also listening to these beautiful stories of survival, hope, love, and resistance, because that's needed too, that we all take on this challenge, that it's beyond knowing the numbers, it's about taking an action. Voting. Get involved with your local politics. There's an amazing person back there, Marsha, Stonewall Democrats, get involved. Do you want to make some policy changes? Do you want to make some changes so that we don't have to read these names anymore? Vote. Get involved. Get involved in the mayoral race. Get involved. You want to talk about better access to services? Jen Cruz, over there. New Fresno EOC LGBTQ Resource Center. Get involved. You want to talk about healthcare? There are plenty of organizations here that are doing that. There's also amazing churches. Reverend over there, Reverend Pastor Bill, who runs our Savior Lutheran Church, who provides so much support to the transgender community. He's been a wonderful ally to us. All I'm saying is take upon this challenge. We need to go beyond the names. And thank you so much.
Okay, I'm back, and I have the honor of introducing the next entertainer, your MC for tonight, and Mr. Trans 2018, Zane Anthony.
Cheers to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. say, hey, here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. Cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back your memories bring back your. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost, and I felt all of the hatred was too powerful to stop. Now my heart feels like an ember, and it's lighting up the dark. I'll carry these torches for you, and you know I'll never drop. Yeah, everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Everything gon' be alright. Don't raise a glass and say, hey, here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. Cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. Cause the dreams bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back your. Memories bring back your. Memories bring back your.
Cheers. This is coffee, by the way. Thank you. Yeah, memories. It is a hard night, but we do like to also bring about the importance of the awareness, like Dr. Fulbert said, not to ever have to have any of these types of nights. But I am glad that we do, because it just shows our community coming together. Speaking of that, we do have somebody who is a very, very large supporter, especially in the, I would say, spiritual community, because there's a lot of different organizations, churches, religions that do, kind of throw out what they're about, but this specific church has shown their support in numerous ways. We did have a carnival recently, and Pastor Bill did open up the church for us, so thank you so much. That was a great event for Transemotion. I would like to invite him up to the stage to do a reading. Pastor Bill Knezevich. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. When Zoyer asked me to speak here, I asked him, well, what should I say exactly, or what should I be talking about? And he said, well, it would be good for you to talk about why you're an ally of the transgender community. And I said, well, that's easy. It's in my self-interest. Because I'm gay, of course, and then my husband's over there. And I'm part of the community, but I also do know that the transgender community of our alphabet soup, the LGBTQIA+, is the one that's most vulnerable right now. The current regime in the White House certainly has shown that, and the language that's coming out of there. And I'm sorry to say, also from the people on the other religious side of it, the fundamentalists who support all this, who would like to see all of us go away. So, as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, there are so many parallels to what's happening in this country today and what was happening in early Nazi Germany and throughout Nazi Germany. Like, I don't realize if, well, some of you may know the name Scott Warren. Does anybody recognize that name? On Wednesday, he was just acquitted, well, not acquitted, but a jury in Arizona found him not guilty for simply helping 2 men last year with water and food as they crossed the desert. And the government wanted to send him to prison for 10 years for just being humanitarian, and thank God for the jury that said, no, we are better than that. So as I was thinking about the comparison between Nazi Germany and today, and much of the language that comes especially out of the White House, I was thinking of a particular pastor. His name is Martin Niemöller. I don't know, you may not know his name, but you're very familiar, I'm sure, with his poem. And there's been very many versions of it. And it goes like this. First they came for the communists, and I said and did nothing. Then they came for the unionists, and I said and did nothing. Then they came for the Jews, and I said and I did nothing. And then they came for me, and there was no one to say or do anything for me. The sad thing about him is that initially he supported the Nazis. He liked what they were doing. And the only thing that changed for him was that the Nazis started messing around in the churches. Now, later in life, he did end up in a concentration camp, and he asked this question. He said, God's not going to ask about what I did in those years in the concentration camp. What he's going to ask about is what I was doing in those years when I was supporting the Nazis. I want to give you another quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa, and I was very involved way back when in the anti-apartheid fights. He said, when you choose to do nothing, you take the side of oppression. And that's why I'm here, and that's why my church is so supportive of the transgender community. Because if we say nothing, if I say nothing, I have taken the side of the disgusting stuff that comes out of the White House and those who follow that man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One more time for Pastor Bill. Thank you, Bill. And without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage Kasha. Kasha, you ready? All right. Here we go.
How's everyone doing? One person. So, I didn't ask them to announce me because I don't like talking about myself. It's a big personal thing. But I'm up here because I am proud to say that I am an active duty sailor and have been for 10 years. So I'm here to speak on behalf of not just the trans community, but those of us that are actually struggling in the military today because of how society perceives us. There's many times that a lot of people don't understand that it is hard enough to be who we are. It is harder to fight for a nation who tells you we don't want you here. Every day I wake up, I still dress like a boy, I go to work, I get dead named, wrong pronouns, they all know that I'm trans, just to fight for a nation and to serve a boss who says, you don't deserve to be here. That's a hard struggle. That causes depression. That causes the ultimate sacrifice that a lot of us take on days where we have to remember them. I've had many friends in the past who I knew were part of our community, but they were so scared because of don't ask, don't tell. Thankfully, that has gone away. But now, society is saying, you can be gay, but don't be a freak. You can be gay, but don't be another gender. You can be gay and fight for my rights, but I don't want somebody that thinks that they're another gender and that they're confused. That is a day-to-day for trans military sailors and Army and Air Force and Coast Guard and Marines. I have been serving for 10 years. In the last 4 years, the reasons of why I started fighting for our country have kind of gone to shit. And I'm saying that bluntly because that's how I feel. Every day I go to work, I have to convince myself that there is a reason that I'm still fighting. I have to convince myself that there is a reason that I go to work every day and that there are those values still out there of the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that I originally thought as a patriot before I joined the Navy, that these rights are going to be the rights that I'm going to be able to come home to. I've done my tours in Iraq. I've done them in Afghanistan. I've been to Japan. I've gone all over the world, and I've seen different cultures and societies, and I am so envious and jealous of some of them. They treat their communities with so much pride. I was born of a Native American family where being two-spirited means that you're going to be somebody. Unfortunately, nobody in my family talks to me anymore. I am also not allowed to go back to my tribe. They do not welcome me. So why do I fight for this nation? Why do I fight for this country? Why do I serve proudly on some days for somebody that doesn't want me to be here? After searching so hard, the only thing I can find in my heart and my soul to say that there's a reason is I'm fighting for us. I'm fighting for all of you. That is my reason. And I'm proud to have an extended family within our community. And sadly, there are days where I'm crying because it's not enough. I was in San Diego for most of my career before moving to Fresno. This is the first time since being out that I have been scared. I'm scared to dress, to go out in a conservative community where I'm always getting asked, who's that guy and why does he look like that? Or getting the stares or the looks. But yet, I can look like a guy, wear my uniform, and it's always, thank you, sir, for your service. I've only had one instance where I had a former military member see me as a woman and say, I see you, and thank you. We need more of that. I have seen so many times where we have lost so many members of the military, not just due to what the sacrifices that we are afforded to do for this nation, which is a beautiful sacrifice for those that are patriots when you have something to fight for. But I've also seen the losses from fellow shipmates, armies, Coast Guard, Air Force, Marines, where they just say, I can't do it anymore. And they give up. And then I have a day like this where I have to remember them. We've had many of them they do suicide by enemy because it's easier, or because of faith, because suicide's a sin, and they want to prove their faith and still stick to it. You shouldn't have to have that choice. That choice should never be on the table. Luckily, I'm still able to serve with my other 20,000 plus trans military members. And hopefully in a year, the struggle starts to go away. And as you heard before, that comes with voting. You're not just voting for civilians or people that go to work every day. You're fighting for people like myself and giving me a reason to know that when I go deploy and I come home, I'm going to be welcomed home with open arms. That is probably the most important thing you can do for any trans military member. Because we do not get to live in our skin when we're at work. We live in a shell. And usually inside that shell, we're screaming, we're crying. My partner, who's around here somewhere, has had to hold me on countless occasions because I come home and I have not been able to be me. And I feel oppressed in a country that I shouldn't feel oppressed in. Last I checked, and when I went to school, we are a free nation. We are the country that is a melting pot that people come to because you can live free. You can do things here you cannot do in other countries. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights were put in place because of those reasons. The Civil War happened because we had differences and we resolved them. Going further back, we had other wars against Britain so we can have a free nation. So why the hell, when we have 50 states and we have come so far, do we revert back and tell people, I don't like you because you make me question things. I don't like you because I have to get educated and it challenges me and I don't like it. Why do I have to put up with your stuff and see you come out here looking like a freak? That offends me. These are things that I should never have to hear for a country I fight for every day. So I plead, don't just remember those that are here on this wall or the letters that they're going to read later of the names of people that we've lost. Remember those brothers and sisters and individuals that stand side by side you every day, those that are in this room and those that are overseas fighting for this country that are just struggling to be alive. If you can do that for me, you would be doing me a justice and giving me one more reason to fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your services. Thank you. Also, thank you for sharing your perspective that none of us probably would even know happens behind things that we don't even see or feel. Just like everyone in this room, we don't know what each other are feeling or thinking. We only know what we see, right? So thank you again, thank you. That was powerful. Thank you so much. We do have a next entertainer. You've seen him up earlier reading a poem. I will welcome back to the stage, Mr. Max Deco.
My heart in all the wrong places. So I get back way too soon when I should have been patient. I built all these walls so no one could break them. Truth is I miss those nights when my heart could be naked. I don't need to feel love, I just wanna feel something. If it's never enough, at least it's better than nothing. After everyone's lost, and every kiss I wasted, I don't need to feel love. Just wanna feel something. Just wanna feel something. Just wanna feel something. I just wanna feel. I've waited so long to feel like I'm worthy. Find someone who could rewrite the pages I'm turning. I've grown with the pain and babe, I'm lonely. All I want in this moment is someone to hold me. I don't need to feel love, I just wanna feel something. If it's never enough, at least it's better than nothing. After everyone's lost, and every kiss I wasted, I don't need to feel love. Just wanna feel something. Just wanna feel something. I wanna feel something. Oh, I just wanna feel love. I don't wanna feel nothing. I don't wanna feel nothing. Just wanna feel something. Just wanna feel something.
Can you come show us your suit real quick? Yes! I need a whole model walk of this sky.
Yes.
Those clouds though. Where did you get that at? Amazon. Where did you get the tie? Show us the tie. All Amazon. All Amazon. Cool. Thank you, Max. Thank you. And we do have someone speaking next who is another very important part of our community. She is a very, very special ally to our transgender people. We thank you very much for standing up for us and our community. She helped us with the float at Pride, which was awesome. Those balloons though. So without further ado, she is part of our Trans Emotion organization as well. So thank you, April. Please welcome to the stage, April Taylor Celery.
My name is April, like he introduced. My pronouns are she, her, hers. It's my honor to be here this evening with the opportunity to speak to all of you, to share our story and why we're involved. When I went to go look up the history of Transgender Day of Remembrance and see why it came to be, I realized that today is the 20th anniversary of this event. 20 years ago, an ally created this day to celebrate and honor the death of her friend, who is also transgender, and it kind of just went from there. The idea being to bring attention to the losses we face due to anti-transgender bigotry and violence. As a mother of a trans child who isn't here tonight because the idea of coming here to face the fact that we're celebrating the people like him who have been murdered or committed suicide because this is too much for them. It's too much fear for him to bear. So he came with us last year, and that was the first time I felt like maybe he can understand what this was. And ever since then, he's taken a couple opportunities to look to his dad and I and ask, Mom, will there be any not positive people there? Should I not go? Or, Mama, please don't wear your trans shirt. What if they see me and they want to hurt me? Mama, will you please promise they won't take my picture? It's because of that it's so important for those of us who are in the room who are cis to do our part. So I'm here because my son is too scared to be. If it's not for the cis people who make it safe, we will always have a Transgender Day of Remembrance. We will be here in 20 more years, and 20 years after that. If we're not willing to make the environment safe for those other than ourselves, it'll never change. So I urge you to do your part, to be an ally, and to allow for transgender individuals to be safe, to feel loved, to feel worthy. My child gets the great privilege, we feel, and others might not agree, that he gets to be stealth. He gets to go to school every day and not have to face it. But he also goes to school every day terrified that tomorrow's stealth won't be an option. And then what does that mean? For those of you who are cis and straight, the fear of walking into a bathroom isn't the same. We don't know what it is to just walk into the room and know that there's a strong chance that something awful could happen. We have that privilege. So doing our part to allow for others to also have that privilege. So one way of doing that is recognizing that if we introduce, as cis individuals, introduce our pronouns in our email, in a conversation, at any chance you're introducing yourself, you're making that a safe environment for transgender individuals to either share their pronoun or at the very least know you're safe. So there is a link out there and it says why I share my pronouns and why I attach it to my emails and why you should. That I have added to all my emails so that anybody who is trans comes across, they know I'm a safe person, but also hopefully to educate the cis person who has no idea why I insist on wearing my pronoun, announcing my pronoun, signing my name with my pronoun, because I can. And I want that to be something that my son can do without fear, and hopefully someday that we don't have to, that it's just safe. So my hope is, by being here, by having these events, that we create a little bit more empathy and safety for the trans individuals who are in the room with us. So I appreciate everybody who's here, who's showing their allyship, who is here maybe because they didn't really know what they were getting into, but I hope you learned something. And I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Isn't that awesome to have that support, especially from your mom, your immediate family? I know a lot of us struggle just to try and tell them, come out to them. It's like, oh, but to have somebody actually standing up for us, thank you so much. We appreciate that. We do have another speaker here. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce to the stage at this time, Jackie Alvarez. Come up, Jackie. Thank you.
Good evening. I just want to thank you for joining us all here tonight, for putting on this event, and for inviting me to come speak. I feel honored to do so. And so I thought about it a little bit. There are so many things I wanted to say. I'm kind of a crier. Most of my friends know that. So I was like, I'm going to read. I once wrote my master's thesis. I'm a professor of philosophy at Fresno City College, and I've taught some women's studies classes here. And I teach in the prison as well, where I try to advocate for transgender inmates often, and try to teach them how to think for themselves, to advocate on their own behalfs within the institution. And so my master's thesis was mainly about the authenticity of trans identity, and I kind of wanted to share with you just a piece of it. I think it's a really good argument that you can take out into the streets. It's kind of ridiculous that we have to make said arguments to treat people humanely because they're experiencing violence and then blamed for the violence that they sustained through the legal system. Human beings suffer myriad kinds of harm, like other animals. We wither and die because of disease and injury, and pregnancy and childbirth, from old age. Like some other animals, we sometimes inflict injury and death upon each other. Not only can we harm one by one, we have systematic ways of uniting to harm whole collections of other humans. We wage war, we annihilate, we execute, we enslave, we retaliate, we punish, we dominate, we terrorize, we tyrannize, we exploit, we coerce, and we oppress. Unlike other animals, we morally judge our actions that harm each other, justifying some, denouncing others. Biological essentialism ought to be negated. We need to get together, disrupt the idea of an origin that transgender persons often do not feel fits as a description of who they are. Transphobia can be challenged more deeply than what has been presented, and new questions about authenticity should be asked. Perhaps the collective panic and accusations that transgender individuals do, by definition, deceive, whether by lie or masquerading. This is a reference to an article by Talia Becher where she restates the double bind that trans people face when, if they say up front what their conferred status at birth is, then they're masquerading as some said gender, and if they hide it, then they're lying. And so no matter how the transgender individual presents themselves, they're always constructed as a deceiver. Is a reflection of a collective anxiety, a manifestation of the fact that gender nonconformers and transgender individuals force cisgender individuals to engage in the introspection regarding the material reality of their own gender and of gender abstractly, and present us with the worry that they themselves are not authentic either. To the cisgender individual. The supposed gender deception by trans individuals may lead to questioning the fundamental fabric of gender altogether. If womb does not make a woman, what does? If genitals do not determine gender identity, then what does? If society has constructed gender in an intentionally rigid and unattainable manner, where does that leave the normal conforming individuals on the axis of authenticity? Is the anxiety that there is no inner sense of self, but only conformity? This is something cisgender persons must work out. They must work it out alone. They do not get to harm transgender persons to avoid doing that work. I conclude with deception is not a defining characteristic of a transgender individual, any more than it's a common habit of humans. We all move through the world deceiving others at every turn by pretending to understand ourselves, by pretending to possess the ability to make decisions when we are largely part products of a dogmatic society. There is not somehow more egregiousness to gender fluidity because gender is not a solid, immutable category to begin with. And yet there is still the possibility of authenticity, if only thinly and at various times, when our sense of self lines up with what we tell others who we are that matches up with how we live out being that self. So, to leave you with my last call to action, for those who lost their lives to violence and those who in this room face metaphorical violence in restrooms, in classrooms, at Save Mart, in department meetings, and on the bus. Trans persons get to be the experts of their own lives, and when we talk about their lives and subjugate them in the academy, I want to basically say, as an academic, often transgender people don't get to be the experts of their lives because academics are busy synthesizing and analyzing their lives through their own lens. And so I think we should have accountability to the communities that we represent. And I think that if you're an ally or a cisgendered person, you occupy a space that is much safer and that it is your job to sort of stand in the gap and disrupt the way things are. I do welcome free thinking, and I think that disputes, analysis, and class discussions are welcoming. And talk about the self is obviously okay, but I think that we need to realize that when we're doing this and there's a lived experience on somebody's body, we don't get to deny the salience of who they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. We do have another reading for you. Everybody doing okay? Woo! All right, front row. All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Bill Nary. Ben, I'm sorry. Ben, I said Bill earlier. That was Pastor Bill. Sorry, Ben, forgive me. Please welcome Ben Nary.
So Danita and I wrote the speech together, and she was going to give it because I have severe anxiety, but she was unable to come today, so I'll be giving it. So Fresno State has helped pave the way for many first-generation students, Central Valley natives, and students of color by providing opportunities and advocating for their success, which is really great, and we thank them for doing that. However, there are still many areas in which Fresno State needs to grow. The lack of transgender student support shown by Fresno State is a little concerning, and here's why. Currently, policy and training is not in place for preferred name and pronoun use, causing many students to be frequently misgendered. Implementation of the gender-inclusive bathrooms here on campus has been chaotic and slightly unclear. Gender-inclusive housing is ambiguous and easily overlooked, and policies all around have not yet been updated to actively protect transgender students on this campus. Knowing what we know about Fresno State's problem areas around trans student support, I know we can do better. Fresno State can update policy, provide mandatory transgender training, specifically in the areas that students have to access the most, and those areas in which they have access to their legal names and genders, where they get misgendered the most, which is places like financial aid, payroll, the health center. Also, helping educate folks on campus on these issues will continue to build empathy and understanding for our trans students. Fresno State can mandate faculty to take a training on pronouns and names so there is less confusion on what these issues are and how they impact students. If Fresno State chooses to prioritize the safety and well-being of trans students, it would be doing its best to educate folks all around and create policy, update buildings, and provide a well-rounded education to better support trans students and create a safer campus for them. Although Fresno State has a lot of work to do, a lot has been accomplished in the last couple of years, and we don't want to leave that out. Preferred names were added to rosters, and pronouns will soon be added as well. Gender-inclusive restrooms have increased and have been mapped out, and a transgender conference is currently in the works for next spring or summer. So, both Danny and I work for the Cross Cultural and Gender Center. So as the Cross Cultural and Gender Center, we plan to continue to build upon these steps to create a more inclusive campus for our transgender students by partnering with organizations both on and off campus like Trans Emotion and LGBT allies. And I'm just gonna say Kat Faubert because she's like the head. She's like on 50 different groups. And like Free Mom Hugs, who are here if any of you want hugs. And a lot of basically every resource that we invited here today, working with them. Also advocating and giving a voice to those who need it, and continuing to educate all of those we can, because education can save lives. So Fresno State is home for a lot of students, so it is in the best interest of the campus to make sure it is a safe home for all students and visitors.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks, Ben. We do have one last entertainer before we start the memorial. He was so awesome last year, we had to invite him back. So he'll be doing a live piece on his violin. Let me go ahead and move the mic over for you. This is going to be Matt Mazie, everybody. Matt Maisie, thank you so much, Matt. We're going to go ahead and continue with the start of the memorial. I'm going to actually have Zoyer come up here. Does anybody not know Zoyer? One person, two people. Lies. Zoyer is everywhere, and Zoyer is awesome, right, Zoyer? He is the chair of Trans Emotion. He also does so much for our community and is affiliated with other organizations here. He just stays busy all day. Zoyer, would you like to say hello? In a minute. Do we need those flowers up here? Okay. All right, Zoyer, you ready? Zoyer Zindel. Real quick before Zoyer Zindel. These roses up here, when we're done, if anybody would like to grab one and take them with you. If you would like to have a rose, please feel free after we're done with the service, okay? Thank you.
Ciara Minaj Carter Frazier, 31 years old, from Chicago, Illinois. Regina Denise Brown Gina, 33 years old, Orangeburg, Southern California. Heidi Dansbury, 37 years old, Baltimore, Maryland. Kiana Mattel, 35 years old, Detroit, Michigan, December 7, 2018. Dana Martin, 31 years old, Montgomery, Alabama, January 6, 2019. Ellie Marie Washtok, 38 years old, St. Augustine, Florida, January 31st, 2019. Faye Morena Black, 24 years old, Florida, February 24, 2019. Jazeline Ware, Memphis, Tennessee, March 2019. Ashanti Carmen, 27 years old, Fairmont Heights, Maryland, March 30th, 2019. Claire Legato, 21 years old, Cleveland, Ohio, March 14th, 2019. Malaysia Booker, 23 years old, Dallas, Texas, May 18th, 2019. Michelle Tamika Washington, 40 years old, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, May 19th, 2019. Paris Cameron, 20 years old, Detroit, Michigan, May 25th, 2019. TT Goley, 31 years old, Portland, Oregon, May 27th, 2019. Chanel Lindsay, 26 years old, Dallas, Texas, June 1st, 2019. Johanna Joa Medina, 25 years old, El Paso, Texas, June 1st, 2019. Austin Smith, 19 years old, Evansville, Indiana, June 4th, 2019. Chanel Skurlock, 23 years old, Lumberton, North Carolina, June 5th, 2019. Laylene Cubiletti Polanco Extravaganza. 27 years old, New York City, New York, June 7, 2019. Zoe Spears, 23 years old, Fairmont Heights, Maryland, June 13, 2019. Brooklyn Lindsay, 32 years old, Kansas City, Missouri, June 25th, 2019. Cecilia Cranko, 48 years old, South Orange, New Jersey, June 2019. Denali Barry Stuckley, 29 years old, North Charleston, South Carolina, July 20th, 2019. Bubba Walker, 54 years old, Charlotte, North Carolina, July 27, 2019. Tracy Single, 22 years old, Houston, Texas, July 30th, 2019. Marquis Kiki Van Troy, 21 years old, Miami, Florida, July 31st, 2019. Pebbles Ladimido, 24 years old, Allendale County, South Carolina, August 4th, 2019. Jordan Kofer, 22 years old, Dayton, Ohio, August 4th, 2019. Kiara Quick, 25 years old, North Carolina, August 10th, 2019. Bailey Reeves, 17 years old, Baltimore, Maryland, September 2nd, 2019. B. Love Slater, 23 years old, Lewiston, Florida, September 4, 2019. Andrew Elijah Martinez, 19 years old, Pomona, California, September 4th, 2019. Jalea Jamar, 28 years old, Kansas City, Kansas, September 13th, 2019. Alicia Chanel Stanley, Alicia Diamond, 46 years old, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, September 16th, 2019. Itali Marlowe, 29 years old, Houston, Texas, September 20th, 2019. Diamond Dupree, 26 years old, Warner Robins, Georgia, September 27th, 2019. Corbin Ray Bach, 23 years old, Paducah, Kentucky, October 6, 2019. Christine Zafire, 23 years old, Mankato, Minnesota, October 10th, 2019. Daphne Dorman, 44 years old, San Francisco, California, October 11th, 2019. Brianna B.B. Hill, 30 years old, Kansas City, Missouri, October 14th, 2019. There is another name that has not made it to the list because they died this last week. Akira Allen, she was struck by a New York City subway train on 116th Street. We are unsure at this time if she was pushed or she jumped. We doubt highly that she jumped. She is the most recent black trans woman to have died. The investigation is closing soon. Also, although she never died by suicide or homicide, last year, Lavina Espinosa was one of our speakers, and she passed away this last year, June 2019.
Turn off the music. We're going to go and do a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody want a flower? More than welcome to. Just go ahead and walk up. I assumed you wanted mine, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Cross Cultural and Gender Center, as well as Fresno State. Ben